Welcome to Dig on America, where we speak truth to power. Every week, we give you the dig on how American history, policies, and media created the social and political issues we face today. DOA is independent media supported by listeners.
All right, you ready for me to read?
Yes.
Go on
All
with
right.
your board.
Get yourself ready.
British Channel 4 News
Oh,
in
Jesus.
September 2020 obtained a vast cache of data used by Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign on 200 million American voters.
Hmm?
It revealed that 3.5 million Black Americans were categorized by the Trump's campaign as deterrents, voters they wanted to stay home on election day. Civil rights campaigners said the evidence amounted to a new form of voter suppression and called on Facebook to disclose ads and targeting information that has never been made public. The Deterrence Camp Project has revealed after Channel 4 obtained the database used by Trump's digital campaign team in 2015 and 2016, the leak contained details on 200 million Americans on more than 5,000 files, together 5 terabytes of data. Damn. Making it one of the biggest leaks in history.
Wow.
It reveals not only the huge amounts of data held on every individual voter, but how that data was used and manipulated by models and algorithms. In 16 battleground states, millions of Americans were separated by an algorithm into one of 8 categories, described as audiences, so they could be targeted with tailored ads on Facebook and other platforms. One of these categories was named deterrence, which was described publicly by Trump's chief data scientist as containing people they hope don't vote. Analysis by Channel 4 shows Black Americans were disproportionately marked as deterrents. To give one example, Black people make up 32% of the population in Georgia, but 61% of the deterrence list. The disproportionate categorizing of Black Americans for deterrence was bolstered as people of color labeled as Black, Hispanic, Asian, and other groups made up 54% of the deterrence category, with suburban women as near 40,000. The 2016 campaign preceded the first fall in Black turnout in 20 years, allowing Trump to take victories in Wisconsin and Michigan by wafer-thin margins, despite losing the popular vote. Trump's digital campaign, Project Alamo, involved a team from Cambridge Analytica. We've heard that name before, working with the RNC. 2 senior members of the Cambridge Analytica team joined the Trump 2020 campaign after Cambridge Analytica collapsed in 2018 after investigation. Facebook is facing calls to ban political advertising as international backlash over the use of its platform to spread misinformation, disinformation, and suppression during election campaigns went public. The Trump campaign spent $44 million on Facebook ads in 2016 on 6 million different versions of highly targeted messages, pumped into the feeds of target voters across America, helped by a Facebook employee embedded within the Trump campaign. Many of the ads were so-called dark posts, which could vanish from a recipient's feeds once the campaign stopped paying for them. Thus, no public record exists of the Facebook ads during the 2016 campaign or the lists used to target voters. Without Facebook or the campaign revealing the information, it's not possible to ascertain exactly how potential voters in the deterrence group may have been targeted on Facebook. The Trump campaign stated that they did not target African Americans. Brad Parscale, the campaign's digital director, said, "I'm nearly 100% sure we did not run any campaigns targeting African Americans." But Channel 4's investigation uncovered evidence that the campaign did target black voters with negative ads designed to crush Hillary Clinton's turnout.
Well done as usual. So that is a segue in, and what we will do is I'll get into the dig. This dig is slightly, maybe about 1 or 2 minutes longer than normal. As
It's
Mikey puts it up.
always a little.
Hope y'all
bit
got 45
longer.
minutes, ladies.
And
Here we go. Here we go.
And he always also complains about it. But this is very relevant. And what I'll do is I'll run through this. Ladies, if you would like to stop me in the middle of this to comment on anything, you just yell out for me to pause, and I will do so as we have two women who are running.
You got to do it in Riley Freeman's voice.
There is going to be some voice acting here, but as we have two women who are running for Senate on the show with us today, in Dr. Gillian Battino and Natalie James, who are running in Wisconsin and Arkansas, respectively, for U.S. Senate. So they will be our first commentators on this as we go through this history. Like Natalie said before, history is important. Now, my 8th grade social studies teacher,
Mr. Humble,
taught me things that turns out after doing my own research wasn't exactly the whole story. And this week, we will dive into voter suppression. All Americans have the right to vote and everyone has an equal voice, right? That's the rumor around the campfire and not always correct. In fact, it's almost never the case. Let's examine a timeline, Mikey's favorite thing, of voter suppression efforts in the U.S. Now, according to Britannica, voter suppression means any legal or extra-legal measure or strategy whose purpose or practical effect is to reduce voting, reduce registering to vote, or reduce registering to vote by members of a targeted group, be it a racial group, political party, or religious community. Our nation's founding fathers wrote about fair and just democracy for all, but this ideal was not realized in the early stages of the American experiment, as initially only land-owning white men were able to vote. In 1776, New Jersey gave voting rights to all who lived in the state, but then realized what they did and quickly passed a law to disenfranchise all women and black men. As Native Americans, were you pausing me?
I just said convenient.
Yeah, it's very convenient. And they were like, oh, wait, what did we just do? We have to go back and undo it. Native Americans, African Americans, women, and immigrants were barred from voting, and places like Maryland also banned Jewish people from voting. Even before the Civil War ended, a counter-revolutionary movement in the South by Southern Democrats known as the Southern Redemption movement began. Though he wasn't a huge fan of the South, President Andrew Johnson, a super fucking racist, addressed Congress in 1867 as follows, and I will use the word Neros as proxy. Neros have shown less capacity for government than any other race of people. This is the president of the United States talking here, by the way.
Hey, that's your president. Don't put that on me.
No independent government of any form has ever been successful in their hands. On the contrary, wherever they have been left to their own devices, they have shown a constant tendency to relapse into barbarism.
Pause.
Okay.
So they start cutting hair.
Pause. I guess he never heard of Mansa Musa, huh?
And he has the Colonel Sanders voice going on, and it's
he never heard of Cleopatra or any of the pharaohs.
What?
Yeah.
Musa just the richest man in the world still today. What?
Still today, by today's economic standards.
In explorations,
you know, he used to take trips and just give gold away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And back then there were actual black people in the Senate and in the House, but they don't know how to live.
Yeah, there was a whole coup in was it North Carolina or South Carolina?
They had to get them up out of there. They had a whole
Nero.
Once again, Haas getting ahead of the history lesson. Why do you have to already know? This proves that you already know things.
I'm sorry.
He can't turn it off. It's just that good.
No, he can't turn it off. It's okay. So
like
nonetheless,
said, automatic, baby.
Nonetheless, the years after the end of the war, up through 1877, known as Reconstruction, saw tremendous gains for Black Americans, including the ratification of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The period was also turbulent, however, shaped by political violence aimed at reestablishing white authority. Historian,
must respect my authority.
My authoritarianism.
Respect is taken, not given.
You have to earn it. Merit system. Historian Eric Foner pointed out the following, quote, a mob of 150 armed white men in Colfax, the seat of Grant Parish, Louisiana, killed between 60 and 150 Black Americans who had taken over the local courthouse and been defending it from possible Democratic seizure following the state's controversial 1872 governor's election.
Pause. Now, see, that was the Democrats. See, the Republicans have always been on the right side of history. That was the Democrats. The Democrats are always doing something.
Those dirty, don't you guys know the history of your party?
Right.
The massacre showed the, quote, the lengths to which some opponents of Reconstruction would go to regain their accustomed authority. Now, the 15th Amendment ensured that people could not be denied the right to vote because of their race, color, or previous condition of servitude, but it also enabled states to oversee elections as they saw fit. Shortly after the Civil War, Mississippi's Democrats were appalled when 2 Black men became members of the Senate. They're going to be equally appalled when Natalie takes the Senate seat, but, you know, that's their problem.
Rolling over in their racist graves.
I'll bring them some flowers to help them. Okay.
Put some poop on their grave, like that you found on the floor.
Put some brownie on their grave.
So these guys, these Mississippi Democrats, then initiated a campaign of intimidation at the polls that succeeded in restoring white Democrats to power in Mississippi by 1881. Mississippi became one of the first states to put forward a grandfather clause that permitted registering anyone whose grandfather was qualified to vote before the Civil War. This voter suppression tactic, cut the percentage of Black men eligible to vote from over 90% of that community to less than 6% by 1892. Women, of course, could still not vote. In 1890, more than 100 men gathered at the Mississippi State Capitol for a constitutional convention. In his opening speech, Judge Solomon Calhoun, president of the convention, charged the delegates with a single task. We must foghorn leghorn devise a way to keep Black men from voting in Mississippi. Quote, this ballot system now must be arranged as to affect one object. 20 years after the passage of the 14th and 15th Amendments granted Black Americans citizenship and gave Black men the right to vote, we find the two races now together. The rule of one, which has always meant economic and moral ruin, we find another race whose rule has always meant prosperity and happiness. And prosperity and happiness, not just to one, but to all races. Stop me when this sounds familiar.
Is Amir's Dutch enjoying this too much? I'm gonna need you to take a little labored delivery. You kind of
getting into my Earl Tucker.
You channeled something there that I'm not comfortable with.
Sounds like somebody's grandfather that just recently got kicked out of the White House.
Absolutely, I'm channeling Earl Tucker. Many other states implemented such tactics as poll taxes, literacy tests, and English language requirements to deliberately.
This sounds worse than it is, but when I was doing this in high school, when we were covering this, I had he was probably like 24 or 5, real young history nerd guy. And he's like, all right, I actually drew up some literacy tests. Would you guys all like to take them? And they was like, yeah, let's take it. So then he like handed out the literacy test to us. It's like, okay, everybody have your tests and begin. And you're done. That's how they did the literacy test. They would give you, like, there's no rule. They were allowed to give the test however they saw fit. They never had to give a fair test. So that's another thing that kind of gets like glossed over is like, oh, well, they were illiterate. How are they going to know the issues? I guess that makes sense. You know, that could make sense in someone's head if they're like reading after. No, they were allowed to give you a test. And there is nothing in the rules that says it has to be a fair test, that you have to have an adequate amount of time to read the document and answer the questions following. They would hand it to you, take it back, and say, okay, here's the test over what you just read.
You're actually saving me time here. So that is
You're
good.
welcome.
Obviously, this was all done to reduce voting among African Americans, as well as immigrants and low-income populations to lesser degrees. These tactics became known as Jim Crow laws. Efforts like the one in Mississippi and other southern states lasted for almost a century. Shortly before President Grant, Ulysses S. Grant, left office, an electoral commission was created to settle the disputed 1876 presidential election between Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel J. Tilden. Democrats, who is Tilden's people, agreed to give Hayes the presidency on the understanding that the federal government would remove its troops from the former Confederate states. This compromise, or as some historians call it, betrayal, marked the end of Reconstruction. 1915 brought us, going back to voter suppression here, well, we've never left it, but the specific timeline. 1915 brought us the Gwynne decision by the Supreme Court, where the court ruled that Oklahoma's grandfather clause exemption violated the 15th Amendment. Sounds good, right? Well, the state had little effect because the ruling had little effect because the state merely found other ways to disenfranchise voters, though it did help establish the NAACP as a key voting rights advocate for Black Americans. The 1944 Smith versus Allwright decision overturned a previous decision, which was Grovey versus Townsend, which allowed the Texas Democratic Party to prohibit Black Americans from voting in the Democratic primary, which was referred to as the white primary system. In a shocking, and as you've noticed here, everything we've talked about so far has been Democrats. We know this, so stop telling us about it. And you know this, man. In a shocking twist of political leanings, Democratic President Lyndon B. Johnson signs the Civil Rights Act of 1964 into law, which prohibits employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. And a year later, signed the Voting Rights Act into law, which cemented the Democratic Party's affiliation with Satan, Karl Marx, Hitler, Gandalf the Great, and Mr. Potato Head in the eyes of evangelical conservatives across the nation.
Don't forget about Gargamel.
And Gargamel.
Marks are really big now. Come on.
And particularly in the South.
Pause. Does anyone want to guess what the U.S. population was in 1965?
No.
96 million.
Well, I'll do 1960 because I got a census here.
48 million.
No,
48 from Haas. We got how much you say, Dutch?
I believe it was just under 100 at the time, or just over 100.
Natalie, your guess?
79.
79. And
Gillian, you got to go one. You got to go one.
$1, Bob.
Price is right.
I always hated that guy. I'm like, play the game.
I have to guess. I'm not good at guessing. Okay, I'm going to go with 83. 83.
Final answer. All right.
Final answer.
Stay tuned after these messages because it's not on this article.
Oh my God!
It has the breakdowns of the.
Come on, man!
It has the breakdowns of these percents, but it didn't say the actual number.
What a bait and switcher you are! Anyway,
I'm really getting.
Mikey moonlights on Wednesdays at the used car lot.
Running for here soon?
I'm really starting to get into edging. It's my new kink.
Whoa! Okay.
He's running for city council of his own bathroom.
Mikey on the weekends moonlights at the used car lot on 63rd and Cicero.
Or Cicero, as we call it.
Hey, I'm really trying to get you into this car. Let me go talk to my boss real quick.
Yeah, talk to the finance manager for you.
Let me go talk to my boss.
The credits are 100. We can work with that.
You're like two creams. You said 2 creams, 2 sugars. Let me go talk to him. I'll be right back, you crazy guy.
You buy here, you pay here.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, go ahead.
That's too funny. All righty. So not only did the right then affiliate us with Satan and all of his friends I mentioned before, but particularly in the South, this led to the Southern strategy.
I found it. It's 193 million in 1965.
Wow.
Okay. So
I think we're
Wow, that's a lot.
I thought you were going to know the answer to the question when you brought up the question.
I did too. Hey, I did too.
So this all led
was booming.
That's back when they were having 10 kids to work on the farm.
Yep. Well, that's back when the adoption centers were booming too, but that's a whole nother conversation.
That's for sure. So this again all led to the Southern strategy, which of course is an event that OAN has reported is a fairy tale. So all is then beautiful and peaceful and equal, right? And now we have America today.
Wait. You forgot about the other thing that happened when Lyndon Baines Johnson signed those 2 bills. Am I getting ahead of you again?
No, go ahead.
You know, we got to talk about how the affiliation switched after he did that. He did that, and what happened? A lot of Democrats or Dixiecrats fled to where?
So I didn't cover the Southern strategy in this because we already did a video on that. But but what basically happened for the uninitiated is we had the 1968 presidential election. In the 1968 presidential election, you had 3 candidates. You had Nixon. You had was it George Wallace? I forget his name in Georgia, and he was unaffiliated. So you actually had, I want to say, off the top of my head, it was 7 of the Southern states that went to a third-party candidate whose only and specific agenda was maintaining of segregation. So segregation was
Tim,
so popular.
Tim's in the chat. Tim, what party was that? Put it in the chat for us.
The name of the party? I think it was just an independent candidate.
Tim will know.
I thought.
I'm pretty sure he was just an independent. But the entire platform was basically a maintaining of segregation, or basically, not having decisions like Board versus Brown of Education. I'm sorry,
Brown versus
Board of Education.
I'm the one drinking whiskey.
Yeah. Hey, what do you think I got over here? But that added to basically the Southern strategy, and then Nixon took that game plan and basically used that to his advantage in the 1972 election, and kind of implemented those exact same tactics.
Law and order.
Since then, you have
right.
Switch parties, probably most famously a certain guy who used to lead the Ku Klux Klan. I think his name was David Duke, who was a Republican and then decided to become a Democrat magically. Because that didn't happen until the 80s. But
he was a Democrat and decided to become a Republican.
Yeah, yes, correct. He was a Democrat and decided to become a Republican. He was a little bit late in that. I think he didn't switch until like the late 70s or the early 80s. But he was one of the more famous of the politicians to switch their allegiances. So we do have a video on the Southern strategy where we go into this in detail from about 4 or 5 months ago. You guys can go back and check that one out. But again, OANN says that that's all fake, what I just said, and none of that ever happened. So then, of course, everything's all beautiful and peaceful. And because of Lyndon B. Johnson, everything is equal. And now we have America today, and that's the end of the story. Right? Oh, wait, no, it's not.
About right.
So in 2013, Shelby County versus Holder, which is a Supreme Court decision, SCOTUS gutted the Voting Rights Act by rolling back key provisions that required federal oversight of districts based on their histories of voter discrimination. With the lack of federal oversight, some states require voters to obtain identification or proof of citizenship in order to register, while others purge names from the rolls of registered voters.
Here you go.
Yeah, independent, like I said. Others have shortened shorten the early voting periods. Voters have faced long lines and broken machines on election day and limited access to absentee and mail-in voting. Today, we see voter suppression laws passing at an enormous clip, such as banning of voting on Sunday, villainizing and banning mail-in ballots, which, by the way, have been in existence, mail-in ballots, since the Civil War. And, of course, one of the more heinous ones, putting just one voter drop box in the county in Texas, which contains the city of Houston. So think about that. In the entire county, I believe that I forget the name of the county, but the county that encompasses Houston, Texas, there's one place to drop off your vote. So if you don't have access to a vehicle,
Harris County.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
If you don't have access to a vehicle, if you have to, if you have one of those bosses who won't let you off work, et cetera, you can't make it to there. You're going to have to drive 30, 40 minutes to an hour just to drop off your vote. That is called voter suppression. Why can't you just have, like it was before in that county, where you had multiple drop boxes? Now, this is all compounded by what Haas talked about, a new attraction at the voter suppression carnival, social media. As voter suppression campaigns, both foreign and domestic, aimed at blacks and suburban women, effectively persuaded millions of them from voting in 2012 and 2016. They attacked the legitimacy of candidates such as Stacey Abrams and Joe Biden with false and misleading information, as well as social media platforms like Facebook, who profit, like Haas was talking about. Facebook profited millions of dollars from the ads placed on their site, while, again, repeating what Haas said, refusing to do any fact-checking per their own policy on political ads. And that's the end of the dig, but I have to tell you this. I could have
Your ass.
done 20 or 30 more bullet points on this, because the history of voter suppression in this country has been nonstop, has been extreme, has been done by both parties. We didn't talk at all about gerrymandering, which is a de facto type of voter suppression in a lot of ways. Not really voter suppression, but vote manipulation, I guess, is the better way to say it. So what I'd like to do is, and again, I know that was longer, of course, and I think we had more pauses there than ever, which is great, not to mention the internet issues. So I will give
blame
it to
us. Yeah, our interruptions is what really dragged that on. Not you.
I told you to pay my bill. You're supposed to pay my bill.
We played a fucking bill because homeboys over there at the breaker box like, no, man, I'm gonna just reset this bitch.
The interruptions were brought to you by Netflix.
That dude down the hall.
Yeah, Mo down the hall decided.
Who was probably butt ass naked when he was.
No, it's not him. It's not that. It's not
that neighbor.
No, it's not the naked Nigerian. This guy. Actually, the funny thing is, this guy actually has been evicted. He was evicted 2 months ago, and he's still here.
Flipping breakers. He's supposed to be laying low.
Man, I'm talking about he ain't evicted then.
And you say something to him. Obviously, he's not all the way there. I wouldn't say anything to him.
No,
that's where we different now. I'd be like, motherfucker, ain't you supposed to be gone?
No,
he got kicked out already.
I'm going out with a bang. You
he right here. He right here.
Hey, bro, man, I found your tenant that didn't leave. He over here flipping switches and shit. Get his ass.
I didn't come to play today, ladies and gentlemen. So the first one was free. The second two. But anyway, Natalie, Gillian, your thoughts on voter suppression and what could you do in office to mitigate that?
Oh, first thing, get rid of the filibuster. I mean,
that part.
That's the biggest thing that you can do. And I was listening. Who was it I was talking to? They were telling me that we were listening to Tom Daschle, Senator Tom Daschle, and he was telling us about the longest filibuster. It was 23 hours. I was like, I can find 24 hours worth of crap to get up there and talk about and torture them until they
Just
realize.
read Dr. Seuss. Get up there and read Dr. Seuss.
No, I'm gonna read the Bible to them and how to treat your neighbor over and over and how to love people. But no, I mean, I can figure out numerous ways to torture them, but you have to get rid of the filibuster in order to do that and remove gerrymandering and to remove all voter restrictions, vote the John Lewis Act into place. We already had some great legislation. What was it, in 1965 that was in place, and make sure that those mandates are staying in place without somebody having to vote on them and all this other extra stuff. But if you live in America, you should be able to vote, and it should be automatic, just like when you have selective service. A male of the age of 18 gets to do whatever, has to go to selective service. Well, it should be the same thing with voting. That should be a right. If you can die for your country, you should be able to vote for your country automatically without all this extra rigmarole, and it needs to be easy to vote. That removing of your ballot boxes and things like that, we need history to tell people that this has been going on for decades, and they have a lot of practice at this. So we need to get really good at what to watch out for and what to sit here and block. And we need to get out and make sure we support candidates and put them in place so that we can vote to remove these restrictions. Because I'd be in there like Alexander Hamilton, let me write another bill, writing like I'm going out of time. We're getting rid of this. We're snatching this. Oh, we're amending this. You know what? Snatch your wig too. Let's go, boy. We got to go. That's what I would be doing once I got in there. And I have nothing but time because I'd be the youngest woman in there. So I'm like, hey, buddy, old pal of mine. Exactly. I'm like, let's get some things pop-a-locking, okay? Hey, are you ready for a new time and a new era? Because this is ridiculous what they're doing. Oh, my God. And then to hear that it's been going on for, 100 years, basically?
Yeah.
And
Well, the voter suppression's been going on since, if you notice, 1776 was the very first instance.
Y'all enjoy this voter suppression. I'm about to be in Canada.
Yeah, where they have absolutely no voter suppression whatsoever.
in Cartman, okay.
Yeah, but then it moves on. Like in 1776, we didn't even have a constitution yet. We didn't have the Articles of Confederation weren't even in place. So,
but we knew that certain people couldn't vote.
yeah, we knew that. Doctor.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's right on. The filibuster has to be, we either need to carve it out or abolish it. Where the whole gridlock in Washington D.C. is a result of that filibuster. It's an old, useless rule. It's been utilized as it wasn't intended, and we got to get rid of it. I like to think about the voter suppression in sort of a couple different ways. I mean, to me, the two silos are access to the ballot, and that should be, as Natalie indicated, I think that your kids should not just get a notification that they're eligible for the draft, but that they are now responsible and expected to vote. So that should be automated. It should be a national holiday. Mail-in ballots need to be accessible. We need to make sure that elderly and disabled people and people who are not living in the continental U.S. have absolutely reliable ways to be included in the vote. And that it should be something that's elevated and amplified and that we really get excited about and talk about as a nation, as opposed to this, oh, there's an election today kind of thing. I mean, I definitely missed a couple just because I was a resident and didn't even know what day it was, didn't even know, anything that was going on because we just didn't talk about it. It's not something that we, I think, prize enough as Americans. And I think that that's intentional. So that's one thing. And then we have to make sure that whoever does actually, I believe that the person who wins the popular vote should win the election. So I would like to see the Electoral College get tossed. It doesn't make any sense to me that we have low population states that have 2 senators, and those, some of those states are really problematic right now. So I would like to see some reform for the Electoral College. And I'd also like to make sure that we are careful about providing voting rights to people, for example, DACA recipients and people who've been living in this country and should be citizens, but they don't have an effective, efficient pathway to citizenship. And I think that is also an intentional maneuvering to not allow people who are paying taxes and are, identify as Americans and know this country as their own, to select their own leaders. So I think we really have to pick it apart from all different directions. I'll add that just incidentally, tomorrow I'm taking part in a 24-hour hunger strike, which is not really a hunger strike if it's 24 hours, but I'll call it fasting. But as part of the UNPAC, the UN PAC, which is a group of young people who are hunger striking, and they're doing that for the just to amplify the discussion regarding the For the People Act that we're trying to get passed here in this next week. So I'm doing that as part of support for that. I'm willing to make noise as an activist, but obviously in the Senate, I think we're going to have to be, Natalie and I have to be kicking and screaming in there and just making sure that, that we're heard, and that this stuff is no longer overlooked and brushed under the rug, and that we are very clear about the fact that we are representing people who, who need to be heard, and that means that they need to have an access to the ballot. And so that's a universal American right. So everybody needs it, and we have to center that discussion and make it happen. It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. In Guyana, a couple of years back, I was there during their election, and it was a holiday. All employers were required to give at least half a day off. And everybody went and voted. And it was, and that even went poorly for them. That election ended up being reversed because they've, pulled some nonsense. But my point is that we are not up to snuff here. We have not kept up with the times in so many ways, and this is one of them. It's embarrassing. The world is watching. If we're supposed to be a pinnacle and a beacon of democracy, then we better get our act together.
Yeah, the world is watching, and they are scared, because if it happens and we collapse here, they're scared of what's going to happen. They're watching our election more heavily than we are, because they see the trajectory that we are on. In the next 10 years, we might have, if we do not pull our act together for our children, not just for ourselves, let's think about for the little humans that don't have any help right now. If we don't pull our act together, we might have a full-on dictatorship. We might have somebody telling us what to do. We might have a regime over here and dictating from another foreign dictatorship. We don't want that. We sit here and scrutinize everybody else and say, America's land of the free, and we have most of the freedoms. It's over 100 other countries that have freedoms the way that we do, but they don't have the problems that we do. And they take care of their own, they take care of home, and they don't go pick fights with everybody else that are not needed, especially when their own house is not in order. For this to be a very Christian United States, they've the number one golden rule.
Let me get my
home first. Right.
Let me get my organs out. I'm sorry. I put them away.
You gotta
take care of the mothership.
Yes,
that's exactly right. Yeah.
Take care of that reptilian alien mothership up there.
No, it is not in the sky. It is underneath the ground. Get your conspiracies.
I reject that.
The ground, okay.
That guy.
51.
The guy from Ancient Aliens with the hair like this, Gregorio or whatever, he says that they're in the ocean. So I go with him. He's clearly with them.
And the same is French. MGT.
So
let's get you though.
So let's go to our own and I know that if one of you needs to drop off, that's awesome. We'd love to have you stay. But Haas and Mikey, I'd like to get your opinions on what you heard as far as the voter suppression goes. Haas, why don't you royal in first?
America going to America when America want to America, dude. Okay.
I got you. Hold on, big.
You know
Hold
what
on,
I'm
big
saying?
homie. I got you. Don't worry about it. Hold on.
That's the thing. It is stupefying to me, the amount of hypocrisy that America engages in each and every day. We talk about freedom, and we talk about choice, we talk about opportunity, but there are dozens of examples of America, by law or by ignoring what is happening, going against those very things that they extol. You know what I mean? We talk about freedom, and a lot of times you hear freedom isn't free. and I want my freedom, and I want my freedom to not be vaccinated, et cetera, you know. But then when people say, when the insurance companies say, well, if you're eligible to be vaccinated and you refuse to get vaccinated, you got to pay extra. Oh no. But those are the same people that say freedom isn't free. So if you want to exercise that freedom to not be vaccinated and basically endanger populations, that's the price of your freedom. And I could go on and on with examples, but long story short, America has always been a place that, for the most part, speaks with a forked tongue, and they always whisper the ending of the sentence. This is the land of the free and the home of the brave, white people. You know what I mean? Or male property owners that happen to be white.
Make sure you own property and don't have ovaries.
There's always that. As recent as the mid 2010s, financial institutions were being fined in the millions of dollars for charging exorbitant interest rates for blacks and Latinos on home and auto loans. This is documented. Big banks. Now, we're not talking about Fred's credit union down the street. We're talking about Bank of America. We're talking about Chase. We're talking about Fifth Third Bank. And they've even found in studies that the biases have been built into the automated mortgage application process and things of that nature. They're seeing the same biases played out in the supposedly hands-free. You just go in and punch in numbers, but you got to put your name in there and you got to put your race in there, and then bang, it's built in. This is America, because what is that? The financial system. Systemic racism and systemic bias is permeated throughout all of that. And we as a country had just a beacon of hypocrisy is what I would call
it. Mine is short and sweet. Y'all enjoy this. I'll be in Canada. like I'm dead ass, because it's so frustrating to be a young person and be really want to do something in your country, and you get conversations started with some people your own age, and you're like, all right, we're gonna take care of this, and who is this? Who's running in our district? We're all over this motherfucker. He better be doing this and this and this. And then the vote comes up, and they start closing places early, and then
physically removing ballot drop-off boxes.
They change all the polling places like a week beforehand, and you don't know, because no one got an email saying that this polling place is no longer a polling place, and this is this. They
outlawing water bottles.
Yeah,
it's like I've been in line for 4.5 fucking hours. I smoked hella weed before I got here. What you mean no water?
I'm out of Funyuns, damn it.
I'm about to die. My tongue is dead. I'm dead here. This is death.
No one can hand you water. Nobody can hand you food, things like that. And then they only have a polling station.
We got to get one of those T-shirt shooters. We got to get one of those
T-shirt cannon.
Yeah.
There's some water.
Water balloon fight. Hey.
And just I'll just add one last quick thing on this, and then we'll move to the humidor and we'll say goodbye to our guests. Voter suppression is not the same thing as voter fraud. Stop conflating it. And I'm speaking to people on the right wing.
No, I know you're talking to me.
They'll say, well, Hillary Clinton is still complaining about the 2016 election. Stacey Abrams is still complaining about 2018. Al Gore, there people are still complaining about 01. First of all, Al Gore had an actual case, right? Like, we all know what happened in Florida. They stopped the court case right there, and Al Gore didn't fight. But Hillary Clinton, is she bitching? Absolutely. She's bitching and whining because she ran a shitty-ass campaign, and she was definitely victimized by a couple of things, but she ran a shitty campaign and she's bitching about it.
She thought she could just show up and win.
She
Yep.
thought she could
That
just
was
show
her
up and win.
biggest mistake.
Worst candidate in the history, possibly, of modern elections, like
The
in the last 50
caucasity.
years.
Where the
And
hell is Sarah Palin?
no, well, she was a vice presidential candidate, not
Yeah.
presidential candidate.
No,
But you know, in the Sarah Palin is astonishing. But the
She was made for A&E.
I spent a lot of my
home.
time during that campaign like this.
it,
She's
like,
joking.
And then during then in 2016, I was like,
What?
and the funny thing is, just real quick on Palin, Tina Fey. Sometimes I don't know if it's Sarah Palin or Tina Fey doing that. Like
she
I can't
was
tell the
so
difference.
Good. She was
Yeah.
so good.
But
who did Elizabeth Warren?
the girl who
that's,
does the one who does the Verizon commercials
Does-
now.
I love
my
her.
rise with T-Mobile commercials. What's
Yeah.
her name?
I can't think of her name, but her doing like the little with the teeth shit. I was fucking on the floor.
I think she did Hillary as well. But the point is, is Hillary bitching? Yes. Is Stacey Abrams complaining about stuff? Yes, but she's complaining about voter suppression and a couple of irregularities, right? What Trump and his base are doing is they're making shit up
no,
and then saying, but you guys do it too.
No, they're not making it up. It's actual and factual. It's just on their side. And on their
Yeah.
All
That's
the,
what's
all
so
the,
funny is that the voter
They're not
fraud
making
is
anything up.
the
They're
voter
telling
fraud
you.
is Republicans voting.
all the bounties have been paid.
They're
Yeah.
whispering like, "Oh my God, they're committing voter fraud."
Yeah.
Doing it.
We're doing it.
Oh, they
Yeah.
don't see it's us.
We just did it in blackface.
Yeah, we just
Yes, exactly. They put on one of those little masks and say, "We're gonna look like you guys."
Mhm.
Oh my God.
Hey, it was
You know,
okay in the it was okay in the 80s. I'm sorry, doctor, go ahead.
No, I was just, Natalie made a comment early on about the fact that voter turnout is so low where you are. Would you say it was 20% or something? You said we're not red, we're just not voting, basically. And I think, I think that is something that we need. I say we need to Stacey Abrams the state. That's what I say about Wisconsin, because we have so many folks who aren't coming out to vote. I think we have to come at it from so many different directions, but we need people to vote. We need to have fair maps, especially for our congressional races, obviously, and our up and down ballot stuff. And then we need to have access to the ballot for everyone. And then finally, we need to have a voter system that is secure and has integrity so we can have clarity of rules and process so that we can't, change the outcome of a race just based on a couple of states and a couple of states' laxity of law. It's pretty terrifying if you look at like all of the little pieces because of that long history that you just described. It's like so many problems that have accumulated over so much time.
There you go.
It's
There
late.
it is.
It's late. It's late. I know.
Yeah.
I got 99 problems, but a voter ain't one.
If America's Got Talent and all these other little shows can utilize a cell phone to bring in all the votes they need to on a secure server, we should be able to utilize our votes. We should be able to vote from our phone, from the comfort of our own home or wherever.
I've been saying that for years, and everyone who is anyone in politics says, "Oh no, the fraud." I'm
You
like,
have to use
bro,
the-
I order stuff. Like I do my taxes.
It has
on
my
here.
credit card on here. It has my facial recognition. It has all the things that people do not want out on your phone because you send it and share it to everybody. And if you want to go to the polling station, that option should be available for you. If you want to mail in, but if majority of America could use their cell phone to actually cast a vote and cast their ballot,
or at least register.
not even just register
Even
and vote.
even if it's like I can register and then I can you can QR code boot my phone and then I can go in and cast my vote.
Even
Well,
open
the only problem with that though is that you have some poorer people may not have access to a cell phone or internet.
that's
and
why
then
we have the regular options.
Yeah, so you
That's
have
an
to have the
addition.
regular. Yes, you have to have it as an extra, not as a only.
Mhm.
But I mean, I look at it as, hey, if we can file our taxes online, it almost
So I'm saying I
it
can
almost makes sense to
And pay Uncle Sam online.
like maybe I can vote in the primary when I do my taxes in a couple weeks. That would be like an
Right.
option, or And I personally am not against voter ID, but I am for ID for everyone for free.
Yes.
So, it's
Are you for transportation to the places that provide ID?
There we go.
Because that's how it becomes
Yeah, of
regressive.
course.
It's
You have
because
to
you have to be able to get to the DMV.
the entire
or
the cost of that
pictures, maybe.
program. Let me tell you what the cost of that program would be. The cost of that program would be the amount of money the amount of people in this country times $5, because that's all it costs to get an ID, and that would be like once every 10 years for each person, and that's for the people who don't have an ID. Not every person, because most people already have one. The people who don't, get them a free ID. Like that, a lot of people go to jail because they get pulled over and they don't have an ID.
You have $1.75 billion, Dutch.
And they don't tell
That's
you
nothing nowadays. Nothing to the government.
in most cities you can get a city ID, and it's still considered an identification. You can use that at voting polls, but people don't tell and have easy access to information like that to let everybody know. It's so much stuff that happens. If you want to hide something, what was that? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. We put it on file. We put it on the records department about them wanting to destroy the universe, but nobody ever saw it because they hid it in the piece of paper in the basement of the county clerk's office. That's what they do. They hide all this paperwork. If you get this information out to people, people will know, oh, I can go down to my clerk's office and go get an ID for my city. And that's free. I don't have to go to my local government to get one, or make it accessible where, hey, here's a picture of me, a scanned picture, mail it in, or can send it in online on an app and then mail it out to them. Because in Texas, you can get your driver's license mailed out to you. That's one good thing that they have about them. But
when I was in Galveston, getting on the boat for the cruise for my honeymoon, I think there was 2,500 people that we all got our pictures taken and did all that stuff. It took 4 hours to do an entire cruise ship full of people. The whole ship, 4 hours.
Well, and then on top of that, we're giving out vaccinations at CVS. We can't give out IDs at CVS.
No. I disagree, because working in the retail space, there's nothing I love. There's nothing I love more than when motherfuckers say, well, why can't I just do this while I'm here too? No, motherfucker, I sell fucking bread, eggs, milk. I'm not taking a FedEx
and Crown Royal Peach.
Crown Royal Peach. I don't want to send no money to nowhere for you. I don't want to take your packages. I don't want to do nothing. You're lucky we got a pharmacy. Get your asses out. Get your shit and go home. Say you love your damn family so much, why you spend 88 hours a week in this motherfucker with me?
Because you gotta keep coming in over and over. Learn to multitask, and we'll go a heck of a lot.
Get the hell out of here. I don't want to do shit.
No bias whatsoever.
Okay.
I get
pictures. Come on.
Well, there's a lot of businesses did not make it in this pandemic. I think I just found a new business opportunity for all of them, where we can start accrediting and vetting companies and equipping them to make IDs for people, to do all of that stuff that we're needing. And if not making the IDs, then at least gather the information so that the line to this day, and it's how long have we been in COVID? Almost 24 months, 28 months. It's still a 4-hour wait at the DMV if you want to change your address.
But it's outside now.
And you make you wait out in the snow.
Yeah.
You just gotta go down to Frico Rico's place on 73rd and Vincennes and knock like this. You get your ID.
And as soon as you try to get it scanned,
$250 get your ID.
Yeah, go and get that information. I know.
Or a bottle of Paul Masson.
Hey,
no,
the white.
All right, so
talking about his white.
Hey guys, we appreciate it very much. We'll get to the humidor now. So parting shots, Natalie.
Parting shots. This was awesome. You guys are amazing, and this was extremely fun. One of the fun podcasts that I've done. Normally they're not this much fun. So I'm hoping that we can shake some things up. I am going to tweet that we got together and we had fun today, because that's going to be the biggest highlight. And when we both make it to Washington, I am just happy to have another rebel rouser and another advocate and activist up there to continue to shake up and demand for the rights for people. So
That my best friend.
I tagged y'all both on
okay,
Facebook.
that's exactly it. We're gonna come in like that's my best friend.
That my best friend.
Yes, on TikTok.
Where are James and Battino? Oh man, they at the bar again.
They're walking in late.
Mom, it's gonna be in the purse. I'm a realtor. The bar is in the purse. We don't bring those to the bar. It comes with us. Okay.
They sitting at the bar with Kamala, having a martini.
Miss James, can I see that coffee mug, please? Miss James. I know.
There's another one in here, honey.
You've been blowing in that wine for about 3 hours now. We're not stupid. It's not hot anymore.
She walks in late. She's like, I thought you guys would still be filibustering. So